Let's work through the next menu in the CSS section. Let's go up in here to Courses, VT 1400, CSS Menu 3. Let's go grab that code. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that code. Copy that. Open up Text Wrangler, paste it. I'm probably going to make that size a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. 18. I'm going to save that as menu 3.html. Save it on the desktop. Get rid of that. So, what we're trying to build with this menu 3.html, if we bring that back into a browser, is this. Now, this looks a lot like the last one, except there's a little bit of a change. This is the same as number 2, but it has nested links that are hidden until you hover over a parent element. So, if you hover over products, then you can scroll down and pick up product 1, 2, 3, and 4, services, contact list. So it gives you a drop-down menuing. So we're going to figure out how to do that, and let's go ahead and look at the code to do that. Now, again, we start out with doc type HTML head, title, /title, menu bar 3, nav bar 3, style. So we're doing an internal style sheet. We start it there. If we scroll down to the bottom, we end it here. It's contained internally. Body, background. We've talked a lot about this in the other menus. The background is going to be gray. Margin for all 4 margins is going to be 0. Now the number sign container. Again, that's an ID for container. So if we look down at the HTML code at the bottom of this page, we go body div ID container. So this is our kind of our overall container for all of the other elements. So let's look at what that container has. Well, it's set at 700 pixels wide with no padding, all 4 around. And the margin, it sets the top and bottom margin to 10 and centers it. So let's look at the links, list style. So the list type, position, and image are going to be set to none. Margin 0, that's going to set all 4 margins to 0. Padding 0, that's going to set all 4 paddings to 0. Width, we're going to have, again, this is on our number sign link, so that's, if we call that in the HTML, scroll down here, we got UL ID link. So anywhere we have ID links, that's where it's going to be calling that. So we come back up to that ID links. Background is going to be set to red. Height 35 px. Bottom margin is going to be 10 px. Color is going to be white. It's going to have a dark gray solid border around it, and the border left will be set to 0. Now links li, again, we've talked a little bit about this. So this will be the links with each of the list items. So if we scroll down into the HTML, we now have links and then anything that's an li. So let's go back up. So list item, float left. What that means, it's going to take each of those elements and start them at the left and float them to the right. So they'll go right next to each other, left to right. Width 140 px. I will show you how wide each one of those LIs will be. Padding and margin 0, so that sets all 4 paddings and margins to 0. Position relative. What that means is it sets its position relative to its normal position. And we'll be playing a little bit more with absolute and relative positioning in another little project here in a moment. Background, it's going to set the background color to red, and that finishes off that. Now we have a links li hover. Well, what does the hover do? Well, that means on, when you roll over it, it's going to change it. Well, we've got a little bit of an error right here in the code. That is not red, so that's more of a blue. So we'll fix the comments. So when we hover over something, and it's going to set the background color to blue. Now, links LIA. Well, what is that referring to? So we have links LI and then the A tag. So we're now defining these properties and values for this. So let's go ahead and look what the links LIA. So it's going to be block. What that means is that element will take the full width available. The height is going to be 35 pixels. The line height, again, that's going to give you the ability to center that element vertically. Text alignment is going to center is going to bring your text into the center of the element. Color, all F's, is going to be white. Font size is 14 point, weight bold, so that's going to make it thick. Text decoration none, that gets rid of the underlining on those. And the border left, 1 pix solid 333, that's going to give you a solid gray line border around that element. All right, let's look at the next property. Let's look at the next ID and their properties and values. So we have number sign links, so our ID is links LIUL. So let's go down and see where that's being called. So we have links LIUL. So that a UL is what? It's an unordered list. Okay, and we're going to use this now for defining those elements. So display none. So it hides the element and takes up no space. So display none means don't have the element show and don't take up any space. So, and that's what's going on with those ULs. Position absolute. An absolute position thing is a position relative to the first parent or HTML if there isn't one. So it takes whatever parent element it has and positions it absolutely to that element. For example, if you're within the body in your absolute positioning, it would say, your top, you may come down from the top 100 pixels and in 100 pixels. So it would give you an absolute position in body like that. But it takes whatever its parent position is, and then it says, well, let's come down from the top 36 pixels and then in from the left 0. So it'll kind of tell you where to position it relative to its parent. That's what position absolute means. And that's what the top and left are those positioning coordinates. So these things go together. Z-index. Z-index is going to actually layer this item on top of the current layer. So it brings it forward or closer to you in the screen. List styles, this specifies the list properties, and those are set to none. Margin 0 and padding 0 sets all 4 margins and paddings to 0. So we just defined those elements. When we come back here in the UL portion, the UL sits under the product. So if we scroll down to the bottom, this UL portion is right underneath the products, and that's what we just defined with those properties and values. Let's keep going. We did UL. Links LI hover UL. So it's going to give them a block display which takes up the full width available. If we review that, so that's LI hover UL. So it's those on hover, it's going to make them block elements. So for those elements right here. So links LI hover UL. Next, we have links LIUL LIA. Well, what is that doing? Well, we're in the links. We look at the list items, the UL item, the list item here, and then the A. So we're talking about that specific piece right here. So we're going to set the height to 25 px, the line height, which is the vertical centering, to 25 px. Text align, which is your alignment for your text, is going to be centered. Color, font size, font weight, text decoration we've talked about, and the border left, we've talked about each of those. So it's going to set those items, those properties and values to those elements. Number sign content, that's our ID for content. So as we look into the HTML, what are we talking about? Div ID content. So our background is going to be a light gray. The minimum height is going to be 300 pixels. So it can get bigger than that, but it starts out at that minimum height. padding 20 px, 60 px. That sets the top and bottom to 20 and left and right to 60 on your pad. Border 1 solid, that's going to be a gray border that's 1 pixel wide and solid, and the color is going to be a darker gray. Video isn't used in that, we pulled that out of this thing. So that builds out your drop down menu and gives you some other options that way. So we'll go ahead and save that. We can drag that into the browser. Got a nice little drop down. These little nested links are hidden until you hover over the item in the drop down. So it's basically the same as number 2, except now we have a drop down. And one of the things we could do now is we could push you into having you add drop downs for each of the links if we wanted to. And that would be a nice challenge for this assignment.